Good evening. My name is Eric Lindstrom. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the Inland Wetland Commission meeting for the town of Monroe. Today is Wednesday, December 11th, and it is 7:05 p.m. Will everyone please stand to recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will take a roll call of members of the commission and staff present during tonight's hybrid meeting. Please answer here or present, starting with myself, Eric Lindstrom, chairman here. Ryan Kelly, vice chairman.
Here.
Rick Smith.
Here.
Jim Stewart is not here. Benjamin Sabia, secretary.
Here.
Paul Fernandez is not here. Mark Zamery.
Here.
Kathleen Gallagher, planning and zoning administrator.
Here.
And Andrew Brotman, inland wetlands enforcement officer.
Here.
Before we start, I'll read our mission statement and how the meeting will proceed. The objective and purpose of the Inland Wetland Commission is to provide for the overall protection and preservation of the inland wetlands and watercourses within the town of Monroe. Tonight's meeting procedure. Please note that this meeting is being conducted utilizing electronic equipment in compliance with State Law, Public Act 21-1. As such, this meeting is being recorded and will be available to the public in compliance with state law. If you are attending remotely, please remember to mute your microphone unless speaking. Anyone participating remotely should state their name and title, if applicable, at the outset of each occasion that such person is speaking. All votes taken during which any member of this body are participating remotely shall be taken by roll call unless the vote is unanimous. The chat features will not be utilized nor considered during this meeting. In the normal course of our meetings, we will hear public hearings and other applications. The protocol for public hearings is to have an applicant make a presentation to the commission during which and after which the commission will be asking the applicant questions. I ask the applicants keep their presentations as concise as possible. The commission will then review town, staff, and other independent comments. The meeting will then be open for public comment. I will ask that all comments be made to the chair or commission. After any and all comments pro, in opposition, or of a general nature are made, the applicant will be given an opportunity to respond. Please keep comments or questions direct, or a time limit of 3 minutes may be imposed. It is not necessary that the applicant respond, but generally in their best interest to do so. There will be no further opportunity for new questions unless new material is entered in as evidence or testimony during their response. Please keep all comments pro and con specific to inland wetland related matters. Other applications that do not involve a public hearing will follow a similar format, with the exception that there will be no public comments allowed. The meeting follows our published agenda unless otherwise amended. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There is a change to the agenda. We are adding application acceptance for 106 Hammertown Road.
You have packets with all the information, I assume?
That was included in, what was it?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. General public participation. Is there anybody in the chambers who would like to speak in a general nature at this time? Come on up. State your name and address, please.
Johnson Allison and Mikowski, 66 East Village Road. We're here tonight. We have a concern that we want to get on record about a wetland violation at 60 East Village Road. We have something my wife's going to read.
About a year and a half ago, we gained a lot of insight into the wetlands and how vital they are to the environment. The violation pertains to a permit granted by the Public Works Department for a curb cut-in and driveway for a building. The cut-in was performed by a town employee who is also the head foreman of the road crew for the town of Monroe. To our estimation, the cut-in included filling in wetlands with approximately 5 to 6 triaxle loads of fill. There were also possible historic stone walls that are no longer exist. Our concerns are twofold. First being that the Public Works employee and the department were not aware of the wetlands, and the property owner was not advised to seek wetland approval before starting the project when all the maps show the property to be in wetlands. You pull it up on the GIS, it's all wetlands. Another major concern is that this was brought back to the zoning enforcement officer back in April of 2024. It's now December, and the property is currently for sale by owner. And the listing states that, and I quote, "The property is bisected by a small stream of wetlands restrictions. Currently, we are under approval permitting to possibly add a 2 to 3 car steel structure along the eastmost property line of East Village Road on the east side of the stream. The road access has recently been completed to access that portion of the property. In addition, zoning was changed to 1 acre, and there is a potential of construction a standalone cottage on the northwest corner of the property. The natural road on the wooded area hides an existing tractor path that would serve as a perfect driveway to that corner. This property is part of the Monroe that is commercially zoned. So the privacy, open space potential over the garage, additional floor of garage below, and the potential of 2 to 3 more bays make this a great location for an owner-operator business residence." That's the end of the quote from the list. If the property gets sold and a buyer buys this for sale by owner and they don't do the due diligence, which happens often, and I see it daily, there will be an even bigger issue with the violation because that comes with the property. If this gets sold, nobody looks it up, nobody knows there's a violation. Now the new owner has a violation. Or is this just going to fall on the town of Monroe for not addressing it sooner because it was done by the town?
Have you brought this up to our okay, so why don't you
So
give us your,
where we are in this process is, if you'll remember 68,
And I apologize, I'm gonna interrupt
Yeah.
for a moment. We did meet with them within the past week to have their concerns. Understandably, one of their concerns is that this is just gonna fall through the cracks. I think we
Right.
all realize we've had change of staff over the last however many years. We did encourage them to give them additional support, was to bring this to the commission, so the commission had the opportunity, one, to hold us, a little more accountable to what's going on, and to just give them a reassurance that both the commission and staff is taking it into consideration. So that is one of the reasons that they are here tonight. They did meet with us first, which we appreciate, and had a productive conversation. But this is some additional assurance for them to make sure that it's just on both the commission's radar and staff's radar.
okay,
and where we are right now with that process, if you'll remember, 3 meetings ago, 68 East Village was here, and if you remember, he's in the process of getting the soil scientist out there. He's already been out there. It's already been mapped. He is now waiting for the final drawing for that. And that'll give us a lot more information than guesswork.
okay.
And I think what we talked about before is he basically has 3 different options. Once he has that information, he can either come back to ask for the work that had been done to be permitted, with or without an additional remediation plan. He can either choose to come back with a remediation plan to remove that area, to bring it back to where it was before within the property line, or he can come up with an expanded proposed development or with the relocation of the garage and things like that, in which case he would submit a full application, and the remediation would be part of that application. So Andrew hasn't seen the report yet. So I think based on where that final, and we've been told a couple things of where that wetland may have fallen. Where that wetland really fell in comparison to that area of disturbance, I think is going to help direct on what that next step ends up being.
What happens if the property gets sold tomorrow and this violation is,
Our understanding is he's selling it privately. So unfortunately, he doesn't have his own real estate agent that's doing their due diligence to make sure that they're, not
right, so
stating,
what happens? Is
it
there,
runs with the land. So the new owners take on the violation.
right, okay.
We don't want to start out on the wrong foot
I know.
with a new neighbor.
Is there, in terms of the quote, and I apologize, it was a long quote, I promise you, I was listening, but
You can look it up online, it's for sale by owner.
is there anything in that quote that is particularly concerning?
And this,
or inaccurate, specifically inaccurate
It happens
related
all
to
the
the
time.
wetland?
I mean, and this happens all the time. People advertise a potential 2-lot subdivision and nobody actually came to the town to see if it actually can be divided into 2 lots. I mean, people advertise single lots as subdividable lots that aren't actually subdividable. You know, so it's like, yes, there's some things in that I don't know. We haven't done our due diligence to know, you know, if there can be a home occupation permit associated with it. It depends on what somebody would want to do. It depends on the intensity of the use. We don't know what the wetlands look on that side of the property, if they can, do another item. And he obviously doesn't mention anything about the remediation of, what would be
I would
required.
assume-
There is an active violation on the property, and if somebody were to come into our office and ask us about the property, certainly there is a violation that has not been closed out, but short of that, there's not.
Sale of
Well, no, if you have a
That
good
doesn't always happen.
real estate attorney, they should do a title search and that should come up.
Absolutely, they should. But you would be surprised at how often it does not happen.
Right.
They always charge
Two
for.
mortgages.
They do, yeah.
But there's only so much we can do, like, we as a commission, we as a town, like, we can't,
There's no cease and desist in
Right.
terms of the listing of the home or
Right.
the.
No.
No, but what you can do is you can have it in a public forum and it's on meeting minutes and hopefully somebody sees it and they, do whatever. So, part of the reason they are here is again to bring this issue more into the public forum in hopes of maybe preventing, somebody from buying something, that they really shouldn't, buy. And we as staff and our staff, our office manager and our secretary, are both aware of this as well too, because they're the ones that are the first line of defense for title searchers or for people that come in and go through it. So just making sure they're informed, that we're all informed. So that if anybody does come in because they're looking at a property, and I will tell you that most people that do want to potentially put a business on a property will come to us first. Most people don't take that.
before they purchase it.
Before they purchase it. Most people won't take that leap without.
Or even if they want to subdivide it.
Yeah,
They would
so most
hopefully
people
do that.
don't take that leap without talking to us first, but if somebody just wants to buy it as a residential property, they can save money on the closing costs. Yeah, they're sometimes inclined to just.
I believe it is 3-acre residential zone. I don't think it's commercial.
I mean, you can always have a home, even in a residential
Right.
zone, you can have a home occupation permit, but yeah,
But it is 3-acre, it says on our field card,
yeah.
not 1.
Right.
Which makes a difference when you own 5.
So is there anything we need to do as a commission at this point, or just be aware?
I think the
You
ask
guys
is,
are
and
handling it.
correct me if I'm wrong, to be aware.
Does it need remediation? Does that need to be removed? Because it definitely is infringing on the wetlands as far as we can see by the pink flags.
Right. Well,
Make sure it
and-
doesn't fall through the cracks
Right, he's
within
already
our,
all over it.
staff and office and things like
And
that.
I am in contact with him, so it was
Yeah.
just last week that he sent me, paperwork saying that his plan is done and he's waiting for it to be finalized and he's going to send it to me as soon as he gets it.
I can attest that Andrew has been on top of it and very diligent about it, but I do understand their concerns and I do.
We're just doing our due diligence.
And I do think it's appropriate for them, if they have
I
concerns.
mean,
to
I
bring it to
just,
the commission.
unfortunately, we can't go beyond what we've already done, or we're,
The awareness is appreciated.
right, so it's on our radar.
I would imagine by our next meeting, his presence will be here.
Okay, good,
Thank you.
okay. Thanks. Anyone else in chambers who'd like to come up and speak? Anyone online who'd like to speak in a general nature? I don't think there's anybody online,
No,
but
there's nobody even,
asking it.
online.
Okay. So moving on to regulated activities, we have IWC 2024-11, file number 1509, 285 Cutler's Farm Road, proposed construction of a 16 by 20 pavilion and grill at Wolf Park Beach within the Upland Review area, Town of Monroe, applicant James DeMayo, town engineer representative.
So this is just for an acceptance of whether it'll be a regular hearing or a public hearing.
So he's not going,
It's not online.
okay, well then I guess we need to move to,
I do know all about the project if you have questions.
And this is what we had previously.
yeah,
talked
we
about
talked
the
about
last
it and we
meeting.
said we thought we should go public with it, so.
Well, I did a site walk I think we should just go straight to, I don't think we need a public hearing on this at all. Pretty straightforward. We talked about it. It's all good.
Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Smith to make this
Motion
a
for a regular
For a
hearing?
regular.
regular hearing,
Regular hearing.
and a second by Commissioner Zammering. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous, no opposed. Okay. And then we have, what's the next one? Yeah. I'm gonna get that number here. Where is it?
On to the next. When you come, as you come up, do you mind if I give the precursor to why you're here?
All right, so moving on to IWC 2024-12, file number 1512106 Hammertown
Oh,
Road.
so sorry, I forgot you added that. to the
This, we
agenda.
added to the
So
agenda.
sorry, we added one thing, yes.
So
We have something else we're adding to the agenda?
No, I was preparing for the one that was next after that.
Are we okay?
Yes,
You wanna
yes, we're okay.
skip around or not? We're good?
IWC 2024-12, file number 1512 is 106 Hammertown Road.
Right.
Again, it's an acceptance, we're accepting the application, whether it's going to be a public hearing or a regular hearing. You have information in your packets that came on Friday. It's the proposal to remove sediment from an existing pond for maintenance purposes. There's nobody here to address this at this point. There will be at the next meeting, depending on whether it's whether it's a regular meeting or a public meeting. It's about a 4,500 square foot pond. Sediment has been washing into it for years. It started out as about a 6 foot pond. It's now down to, with the last major rainstorm that we had and all that washout, there's one section of that pond that is less than a foot. So they're proposing for maintenance purposes, draining the pond, dredging all that sediment out of there, drying the sediment, and hauling the sediment off premises
Hauling it off permanently?
permanently. Yes. Yep.
Where do you dry it? Like, how do you dry it?
So there are these drying piles. Essentially, you're scooping up all of the sediment, putting it in a pile. On the plan, you'll see there's 2 areas where they're proposing to essentially pile up the sediment and let it drain through gravity. And then when it's dry, they then load it into trucks
Okay.
and haul it off site
They leave it on site to
to dry,
dry out.
haul it off site once it's dry. Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
There's one way in, one way out. It's about 20 truckloads of material is what they're anticipating hauling out of there. About 250 yards of material. There is an island in the middle of the pond that we had talked about, not touching that.
This is just in somebody's yard
This is in somebody's yard.
between 111 and Wheeler.
It is closer to coming down Hammertown. It's just before Wheeler. Is that Wheeler? Yeah, just before Wheeler on the right.
It's near the, there's a newer development on the left side. It's kind of near that.
No, further down. That's Whitetail Drive you're talking about, Ryan?
Yep.
Further down, quite a bit further down. So if you're traveling from 111, you take a left onto East Village, or I'm sorry, Hammertown,
Hammertown, yeah.
almost at the next intersection on the right-hand side.
I got you.
All right, the pond has been there for over 40 years. I went back on GIS, and I think I went back to 1940. It was not there, but then the next image was 1960, and it was there, or something like that. So the pond goes back a long way, and it's never, as far as the homeowners go, it's never been cleaned out. You can see there's a sediment plan there, there's an erosion control plan, there's a planting plan in there for when they get done to remediate. I've looked through it and I don't see, I don't have any concerns.
Do you have any concerns about it being an agent of approval?
I don't have an issue with it being an agent approval. That is your decision to make. Yeah, go ahead.
So, you talked about planting for mediation. I didn't see that.
The very last page is a planting plan.
Colored,
It's a smaller, yeah, it's not a full.
Okay, but, can I?
It's not much. It's 30 or so 1-gallon plants.
So no large trees going to be removed? All those trees that are there are going to remain there?
There is no large trees to be removed. There's hardly any trees to be removed. As a matter of fact, in their plan, the edges of the pond is landscaped.
Huh?
And they're proposing to remove the plants that they need to remove to get the trucks and the equipment in and out of there and replant them.
And the biota, the other, what kind of life is in the plant, in the ponds there? Frogs?
I would imagine that there's wildlife in there for sure. There's an island in the middle. The homeowners have said in the past there have been ducks that nest in there, and
It's transitionary.
yeah.
But as far as turtles and dusky salamander,
I did not observe any myself, is all I could say.
it's not on the deep, it's not, there's no,
And DDDS, no. I checked that. It's not in the floodplain.
We can ask them further questions at the next meeting, because right now we're just trying to determine if this is a public or.
Right now, all we're just trying to determine is, do you want to see it as a public hearing, a regular hearing, or an agent approval?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we can still make it an agent approval after we determine if, well, yeah, I guess we could. I don't know, I think we should have them come in and we should,
yeah, I'd like to see.
even if it's just a regular hearing.
Yeah.
We gotta, I think we have enough questions and we should.
So if, it could certainly be either hearing, just remind the commissioners, if you wanted it to be a public hearing, there are the three reasons for it to be a public hearing. If you see that it's a significant impact, if there's okay.
Does anybody feel like it needs to be a public hearing?
Okay.
All right.
I'll
Somebody make a motion.
I'll make a motion for this to be a regular meeting, regular hearing.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Kelly to make this a regular hearing. Second. Come by Commissioner Sabia. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Okay.
Next.
What's next on our list here? All right, regular meetings. So we have ZCC/RAA 2024-4, file number 1030-590-600 and 604 Main Street. This application is in front of Planning and Zoning Commission. As part of the application, a report is required for Inland Wetlands Commission on the implications of the zone change.
So as part of the town of Monroe zoning regulations, referrals are required for zoning regulation amendments or zone boundary district changes for any area which has lands regulated pursuant to the Connecticut General Statute, Section 22A-36 to 22A-45. Inclusive shall be referred to the Monroe Inland Wetlands Commissions for a report which report shall be given due consideration. So the ask here tonight is for the Inland Wetland Commission to review the application that is in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission and produce a report with your opinions, recommendations, or thoughts related to the application for them to be able to take that into consideration when they choose to approve or deny a zone boundary change. So the zone boundary change in front of you tonight is for to establish a special development district, SDD number 7. So SDD is the acronym for short, within the Main Street Design District overlay located at 590, 600, and 604 Main Street. The engineer is here tonight to give you, will you share the screen? To give you some more details about the project, but I'd like to kind of holistically talk about the Main Street Design Overlay District and the Special Development Districts, if you guys will entertain, because it's not just a straight zone boundary change. So technically, when we think about, traditionally, when we think about a zone boundary change, we'd be thinking about a residential district being changed to a business district in order to develop it for commercial purposes. Several years ago, the Planning and Zoning Commission adopted regulations in order to encourage economic development within our commercial corridors and created an overlay district. So we still have all of our underlying zones, but there's an overlay district or Main Street Design District. If you meet specific criteria within the Main Street Design District, which includes frontage, locations, things of that nature, you are permitted to then apply for a special development district. That special development district applies to just one parcel. What a special development district allows you to do is it allows you to change the uses that are permitted as part of the underlying zone. It allows you to change the bulk standards, which include setbacks and height and items that are similar to that. Because it's such a specific ask for the commission, they have to also submit conceptual plans. And I say conceptual plans, but they're actually pretty detailed plans. So those detailed plans basically then lock them into what they can develop going further. So they'll come back in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission for a special exception permit. At that time, you'll get a full inland wetland application like you traditionally would if they're doing any work within the 100-foot upland review area, of which case that's when we do a really thorough review of the stormwater management practices and things like that. So the scope of which you're reviewing it tonight, the scope of which is being presented tonight is for the zone boundary change to the SDD district, as well as the conceptual site plans. But it's not just like a straight zone boundary change because they are locking in the conceptual drawing. So it's kind of somewhere in between. It's not the full review of an inland wetland application that you traditionally would have, but it's not as broad based as if they were just doing a straight change from like residential to commercial. Any questions for me before the applicant presents?
I'm just wondering if we have a before and after, so we know what it looked like before versus what it.
If you go through the plans, that's real, and I don't want to steal the thunder.
No, it's okay. If we're gonna find that out, then.
Yeah,
we'll
you're gonna find that out. So they're gonna present to you exactly what's within the scope of what they're presenting as part of the proposed conceptual plan.
Okay.
My name is Jason Montago. I'm a professional engineer and I'm with Solely Engineering at 501 Main Street. So I'm here to talk about the regulation amendment for 590, 600, and 604 Main Street. Some of you may be familiar with Art Center, or now the new sign is Marketplace Square. The site, and I will switch over. The site is bound actually by Main Street to the west, Bar Road to the north, some commercial properties to the south, and then residential to the east, which is also encompasses some of the wetlands. So as we're going through this, the site currently includes retail shops, cafes, a bunch of hardware, a club, many different uses of retail, office space, etc. There are many curb cuts along Main Street and Bart Road. On the eastern side, there are wetlands, as well as a small pocket on the southern boundary of the project. So the proposed amendment, as Kathleen mentioned, will create a special development district number 7 at the site within the MDD and the underlying B1 and RF1 zones. So this will establish regulations and guidelines to help serve the economic development for our project and as well as for the town. So the majority of the site is actually located within the B1 zone, and there's a very small fraction, approximately 2% or so, that is actually located in the R1 zone. The overall property essentially acts as like a commercial center, as I mentioned, all the different uses that it has. And all of the permitted uses in the underlying zones will continue to be permitted. So I'd just like to kind of bring up a bigger picture of the project as I continue to discuss it. So as Kathy mentioned, too, all the plans are schematic. We did put in a good amount of effort and detail. However, as this gets progressed and if it does get accepted and approved, we will come back to wetlands and P&Z and provide very detailed plans, stormwater report, wetlands report for everyone to review and see how we're increasing the stormwater management practices on site, how we're fully developing the site from a site plan perspective, from a landscape and lighting perspective, and a utility perspective. Now in the SDD, we are, as I mentioned, we're allowing all the permitted uses that currently exist. But in the rear of the property, we're also creating the SDD to allow commercial warehouses and self-storage warehousing in the back area. So these are what we're proposing are contractor bays, about 1,000 square feet each. There's about 21 of them. And just for some background, this is kind of going to be proposed for members of trades such as electricians, such as plumbers, HVAC companies that are located in town or surrounding towns that need the storage area for all their equipment to help promote their business. There's actually been expressed interest from numerous customers. Even Abishai Hardware already wants to rent out 5 of the bays to help grow their business. So there are local businesses that actually want to use this to help create growth and establish better practices for the businesses. So as
a quick question, if you don't mind, is there any plan for those storage bays to have, I assume there's going to be electricity for lighting, but is there going to be plumbing? Like, is there going to be restrooms or?
Yes, we're going to be proposing bathrooms in each one of them.
Okay.
And so we'll go through the normal process with the health department and performing the necessary testing and design and submitting to them for their septic. So as you can see on our site plan, we are doing a bunch of improvements to the site. We're striping, we're creating more ADA spaces that are accessible throughout the site. We're adding signage, arrows, landscape island, curving, all try to promote and enhance the whole site is the functionality itself. We also are going to plan on reducing curb cuts. There's substantial curb cuts along Main Street and Barton Road. So we want to actually close this off and actually kind of establish some more landscaping to create a nice buffer and try to add that on to reduce any of the impervious impacts that we'll be proposing as part of this project. Again, this is schematic, but our approach to the stormwater, right now, there's really not a stormwater system that is capturing all of the runoff and treating it before it gets to the wetlands. There's some catch basins in the rear of the parking lot, and then those just discharge out through flared end sections to the wetlands. So we actually want to propose catch basin, capture the stormwater, run it through hydrodynamic separators to separate the oils and the trash. And then they would go underground where we store all that water and release it slowly back into the wetlands. From a landscape perspective, we'll be adding actually some landscape islands throughout the parking lot and providing additional screening along Bart Road. Also the area to your east, northeast, I should say, where there's an existing residential house. We want to provide more shrubs and plantings there to create more of a buffer. And we're trying to keep as much of the wooded area as possible to remain. Along the southern side towards, which is abutting a commercial use, we're going to be promoting again some more plantings. And as I mentioned along Main Street, we wanted to close off some of those curb cuts and establish some plantings, create more of a visual enhancement to the site as well. And then lastly, lighting, we want to bring the entire site to compliance with lighting. So we'll have LEDs, are site compliant. We'll update the lights on the existing buildings as needed to provide the correct number of foot candles and also provide satisfactory lighting in the rear that will brighten the rear to the contractor head building. That's the general overview of all of this. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Again, we will come back with much more detailed plans that you really, pick apart and see how we're actually going to be treating stormwater, running utilities, etc.
Can you describe limitations on the usage of those storage? Kind of work is going to be allowed in those 21 days?
Right, so we'll have established leases that will get reviewed. So mainly it will be like electricians housing their wires or plumbers having pipes for water heaters that they need to store because maybe they have an overflow and they have to put them in there and they're going to come pick them up in the morning, bring them to a site, install them, or they're going to come back late in the evening and drop off materials and then head home. So it's kind of serving as that in-between center. Again, with Abidjan, they want to store some of their materials and supplies in the back, right behind their building, which is extremely convenient. Same with HVAC trades, put additional air condensers in the back, or not in the back, but inside the buildings, just to provide that convenience to local businesses.
That being said, I do want to make it clear that at the moment, and again, we haven't defined what the use is going to be as part of the SDD. I think the moment the thought process is we have our own definition for contractor storage, and I can actually get you the exact definition. So contractors / builders trade establishment is what the use would be classified under, which includes the managerial and administrative office of an electrician, plumber, painter, carpenter, general or specialized contractor or other trades. Heating, ventilation, air conditioner, refrigeration, alarm, security, roofing, and other similar trade occupations, including the orderly inside and or outside on-site parking of company fleet vehicles, including specific sizes of them that are too large during business hours, as well as related contained storage of directly associated materials, equipment, and supplies as otherwise permitted. It does not include vehicle fueling facilities, contractor storage yards, waste refuse haulers or haulers of chemicals, flammable or hazardous materials, a mason, landscaper, or an excavator type contractor. So at the moment, that is the definition, what it would fit in within our code, unless the Planning and Zoning Commission put any other additional restrictions on it. I know that they are advertising it as HVAC, painters, plumbers, carpenters, but you could also get, someone that does certain sorts of pool installation, and maybe there is some sort of, pool chemicals, like we haven't really thought through like where that line is, if that would be defined in here or somewhere else. So even though I know they're trying to go for a plumber, there are going to be some of these gray places that we're going to have to decide where the definitions it meets and if it's permitted in the area.
Are they gonna be allowed to do like fabrication there? Like, is it gonna be like a light industrial type situation? Like
No,
a manufacturer wants to go in there and make widgets?
We have to be very specific. It would have to be the contractor's building trades establishment. Light manufacturing is a different definition in the code, of which case is not permitted. They have to ask for a specific one. The Planning and Zoning Commission has to, specific one or ones, and the Planning and Zoning Commission has to approve that. And at the moment, my understanding, it's really just the contractor's building trades establishment.
That's correct.
Which could include an office. So it could actually include an office and then storage of materials.
Right, so that's what I was saying. You don't want somebody going in there and
No.
making equipment.
If they wanted that, they would have to apply for it, and that's currently not in the scope of the application in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
What about like loading docks? Like if contractors are gonna be getting deliveries of something, is there gonna be any kind of loading docks or anything?
So they'll have, each bay has a large overhead door that'll open up, and then you could actually drive in a vehicle if you needed to, if you have the space in there, but we're not proposing actual loading docks for, a WB 67, say, to back up and unload products.
And they'll have to talk about the functionality of how these are going to be loaded and unloaded, that will be part of the scope of the Planning and Zoning Commission. But again, we're in this really weird gray area where we're not looking too much in the details, but we need to look enough in the details that we don't back ourselves into a corner where then we commit to saying that generally this is approved, and then there's some sort of large fundamental issue that, takes it back.
So what exactly are we looking at?
What I would like you, if you could explain a little more, is I don't know if you have something on here that can generally tell them where the edge of the pavement line is now, how far that building is going beyond that, and then what's the current vegetation ground cover on the area that the building and any sort of disturbance is happening in that area. I think that would.
If I could add one more thing to that, I'm just curious, being that the spaces could be used as offices, is there additional parking being proposed as part of it? I mean, I understand there's a bay, but is there going to be additional parking spaces in between those buildings? Is somewhere that's going to be added? Maybe it's not here, and I know where some of these spots are. I just don't know if they're all.
Yeah, we would have to provide, based on all the uses on that property, if someone wanted to say have an office in one and the other one have additional storage, let's say in a mezzanine or something like that, we still have to provide that parking. So we're providing 195 spaces and we're currently requiring 170. So that provides a little bit of buffer room within that. So if any changes were to happen in the occupancy, then we hopefully can accommodate that.
Is that like 198 across this whole property?
Yes, across the whole property.
So are there any of these new spaces, or are they?
Yes, so then I would say, I'll start with there's a lot of restriping in between 590 and Main Street, all the way in front of 600. We're actually adding the parking spaces that are connected to Parks Road. And then going to the back, we are providing, there's 3 larger spaces in the rear. And to the south, there's 2 drive aisles. Those are all essentially going to be new parking spaces.
They are applying for, we have a shared parking regulation in our code that the predominant use on site is permitted to be reduced by 30% if they can prove that the uses are overlapping in a way that don't conflict with each other in order to reduce impervious surface and the need for unnecessary parking and things like that. So they are applying that to part of it, mostly to the retail use, because obviously 590 is BART Center, the majority of the use. We have discussed it, we're asking for in the rear. You're allowed to have 2 different uses in one building, but you have to park it out based on the square footage. So they have to make an assumption of how much office space for a specific bay or a series of bays they're going to have. That has to apply the office space calculation. And then the rest of it, which is the contractor, bays, has to apply the contractor's builder trade establishment parking calculation to it. So one use doesn't get applied for the whole thing. They actually have to sub it out based on the parking cost.
Is the entrance to these bays in the back or in the front?
That would be in the front. There's a call for proposed filling, propane filling station. So there's some small rectangles that are the overhead doors. It would not be in the back where the buttons are. Those are just emergency exits for the contractors in case of fire or such.
That's what those squares are on the back?
Yes.
Okay.
So I have a couple of questions. So these would be leased storage bays, right?
Yes.
So I think I heard that they could also be used for storage of vehicles, right? Is that what I
Yes.
heard?
Yes.
Yeah, they're allowed to park these.
And then you could also use another bay for office space. So you could potentially have an office space right next to a bay that stores vehicles with either diesel or gasoline or whatever, right? Is that a concern where, you have chemicals like that right next to an office space in these bays, or?
I mean, we have industrial uses that we allow them to put an office space in the corner with a desk and some chairs, and they're allowed to use it for office space while there's a full industrial use going on the floor.
Right, I guess what I'm asking, right, is so that's within the same lease, right? The same person that's, or whatever that's leasing it. But if you have somebody that's leasing the bay right next door to it, you could have that person just using it fully for office space, right? So
Yeah, but I would say I would say it's actually getting incredibly common to actually to retrofit some of these old warehouse facilities in this area where you have all of these what seems like conflicting uses, but maybe not conflicting uses all next to each other.
And I'm not saying whether I'm for or against it, right? I'm just asking questions so that I can understand it.
Yes, an office space if it's for a contractor's building trade establishment, like you couldn't put an office space in for an accountant.
Right. So first of all, let me take a step back. So extremely detailed for conceptual. So I applaud you on that. This is great, right?
Thank you.
Would definitely like to see more and understand more about it. But I think Kathleen was just talking earlier about, well, these would not be approved for other like masonry or, other types of, pool materials. But you could store a vehicle in there with gasoline or diesel, right? So like, I think I just want to know more about that.
The idea is it's for, so let's take what we keep talking, a plumber.
Yeah.
You have a plumber, he owns a business. He has a couple commercial vehicles.
Yeah.
What ends up really happening in town, he'll store them at his house.
Yeah.
In his backyard. He'll store them on his friend's property who owns a business. And we deal with zoning violations all the time with people having more commercial vehicles than they're allowed to have on their property and things like that. So there's a part of this is actually fulfilling a need in town of it's giving them a small space, a 25, 50-foot space, that if they want to store their commercial vehicles somewhere enclosed that isn't being, out in the open for, visual view, it gives them somewhere to do that. So the idea is the employee, the plumber, the whoever it is, comes in, parks their vehicle, takes the company vehicle for the day. Maybe they have a little bit of office space because they have a secretary who's fielding calls, trying to make sure these guys are going to the right places. And then they come back at the end of the day, they have a place to park the commercial vehicle overnight. And
Again, this is a great idea, right? Because you could contain it, you can govern it better, et cetera, right? Like, so I think, yeah, definitely, I'd like to hear more. So, thank you.
Okay, so if we can just go back, I tried to interrupt you, but didn't quite make it. I know I have friends who have bays like this, and so I've been in their bays at night making birdhouses. They normally do kitchen cabinets with it, but I'm just wondering. You didn't say anything. You said during working hours, but what I'm concerned is the 8 neighbors in the area. If somebody's using a high RPM saw and it's saying, it could really ruin your weekend or the summer night. So I'm just wondering how long, or is there any kind of time reference to the time you can be making noise back there?
so, sorry.
It's not inland wetlands. I'm just.
Yeah, at the moment, we're not far enough through that process, but as part of the special exception permit, which would be the next stage of this, they do have the ability to put some additional conditions on it. And they are very aware, this has come to subcommittee, this has come to regulation subcommittee, and I will tell you, they're very concerned about the neighbor, the most adjacent.
Yeah, we'll just let that happen. My other question was with regard to Aubuchon. So right now, there is a lot of current storage that's just out in the parking lot. There aren't there's not a lot of striping for cars and whatsoever. And I see that you're putting the propane tank right in the middle of that back or off the corner of Aubuchon. But what I'd like to ask is so does that mean that all that current storage is going to be put in bays and there's not going to be any, Aubuchon's not going to be allowed to take up any of these 23 parking spaces with pallets of mulch and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, under my assumption, I can't speak for the tenant or the owner of the property, but we are providing additional bays for that overflow to be placed there. So that we should be able to open up additional parking spaces for customers to park in.
In theory, the parking spaces are for parking.
Right, but okay, so there's 23 spaces additionally that are put behind Aubuchon, not off to the side, but behind them. And I would imagine that would be the parking spaces that the bays would use. So I'm going to ask, are there going to be entrances? There are entrances now to the businesses.
Yes.
Aubuchon and others. Are they going to allow people, instead of walking all the way around the building I see that you have ample parking in the front, but they're going to try to open up the bottom doors so that you can enter Aubuchon in the basement and some of these other businesses, the hot sauce store and the other stores that I don't imagine you want to open up a back door for a jewelry store, but what's the thought there?
Yeah, we are proposing, additional parking spaces there, so that can be as an overflow for customers to park in the rear if they needed to as well. We're just trying to distribute that parking as best as possible to provide access to not only 590 Main Street, but also 600 and 604 as well.
And the north side where you have you're moving the garbage, there's some garbage bins, what do you call them?
Refuse containers, yeah.
Large bins. That are moving from the western side to the north side, right near Bart Road. And I see that, it looks to me like you're fencing it off and you're putting trees so that it's gonna be hidden.
That's right.
Great, okay.
Yeah, we want to keep that, contained from the naked eye, so we'll definitely be putting fencing, and additional landscaping as well to cover.
I think that's more of a zoning issue, right?
Yeah.
Not really wetlands.
Correct.
That is in close proximity to the West Branch that runs through the back here.
Yes, so if we get back to I would like this commission to just really understand where the edge of the pavement is in the rear,
Yeah, that's what I.
how much the impervious surface is expanding in the rear, and the dimension, which I know you have it dimensioned out, of the back of the building to map wetlands, really what that area kind of looks like. And then, I don't actually know this quite yet, what's the potential increase of impervious surface in the, parking area?
The total area, we haven't done that exact computation out yet, so I can't provide the exact.
But like swagging it, it's not that big of a difference, right? Is there any area that's expanding substantially?
I wouldn't say substantially. I mean, the southern portion, we are essentially, there's the limit of pavement it's a little difficult to see, but on the left drive aisle, actually going through one of the arrows, that's the edge of pavement, and the edge of pavement kind of runs right up through the proposed storage building, and then runs along those 3 parking spaces. It actually goes further, so we're gonna pull that edge of pavement closer or further away from the wetlands in that northern corner. But we are gonna have to expand the edge of the pavement on the southern side of the property as well, and a little bit closer to the wetlands. The distance from the back of the building to the wetlands is approximately 25 feet. So originally we had a closer distance, we reduced our days, we met during subcommittee meeting, there was some expressed concern on that, and we agreed to actually shrink the depth of the building to promote greater distance from them.
And so the balance here, for this commission is, there's a little bit of, you pull on the rope one direction, it gets a little shorter in the other. So yeah, they're pulling back one, they're going the other way. The other thing I just do want to highlight on the positive side of things is they're providing stormwater in a location that did not have stormwater before, holistically for the entirety of the site. You've seen a rendering in from a planning and zoning perspective. Some of the trade-off is that they're doing a full renovation of 590 of Bart Center as part of this, which isn't necessarily in the scope of inland wetlands, but I just do bring that up as that is part of the entirety of the project that's coming before, the commission. So it really is kind of a balancing of, they're providing a lot of positives, but yes,
It encroaches.
it does encroach.
A bit
I just want to
upland
make
review
sure you guys are
area.
aware of the fact that it is encroaching a little more towards the wetlands, and they are 25 feet from the wetlands in the rear.
So the next question then is what kind of barrier? I don't see any fencing in the back. I see your limitations of disturbance, but, because that stream is active and it's real close to the back there. I think it's 24 feet, 25 feet away maybe at times. Are you gonna put a fence back there or anything to prevent? Because right now the garbage just flows into the area.
Yeah, we were just going to try to maintain as much of the wooded area as possible in the rear. We didn't have a fence proposed as a part of that to the rear. We do have fencing adjacent to the residential property at the northeast corner, but not in the rear.
I would just like to see stipulations that there's no storage of anything on that western side between the building and the wetlands. I mean, that's something that your customers will have to sign up for, that they can't take an engine out of a car and then stick it in the back there.
Right. But that all, put it in the lease and police that accordingly.
But we will, because landscaping businesses could take over a bay, we will have gasoline. No? Okay.
Landscapers
Okay.
are not part of the contractor's trade establishment definition.
So again, right, they're not, but there are other contractors that can store their gasoline vehicles within the bays, right? So it's kind of the same. I mean,
I was concerned with mixing, two cycle and,
Right.
having cans of because, you know, my neighbor does landscaping and he's got cans all over the
Yeah,
place.
but I do like the idea of the processing. I'd really like to hear more about that because that is really a plus that you'd be proposing. So that'd probably be good to kind of highlight. Right? So,
Yeah, a lot of merits.
How much regrading do you think you guys are gonna be doing in the parking lot? Because you're talking about adding more drainage and retention system, like, are you doing any regrading?
Yeah, especially in the vicinity of the proposed building, yes, we'll have to do some minor regrading just to make sure we have an adequate pitch to get that stormwater to a low point, and then also have enough, you know, coverage, et cetera, for the underground system. So minor regrading on that. And then also we'll have to regrade the parking lot.
In the front?
Closer to Park Road, yes.
Yeah.
Closer, the parking lot closer to Park Road and kind of going back. Is that is that the auto body shop that had a bunch of violations?
The old service station there, yeah.
Like, is there any?
Do you want to go down that rabbit hole right now? I'm happy to.
Well, I mean, maybe it's a conversation for another day, but I'm just curious with regrading.
I'll give you,
The risks that are added by that.
I will try to give you the short story. Status wise at the moment is they still have an active violation. It is public record that they came to subcommittee proposing that as part of this STD, they were able to permit working on commercial vehicles as part of the grandfathered automobile repair use that is there now. Subcommittee was not in favor of it. So that is not part of the scope of this SDD that is here. So the only thing from an automotive repair shop use that is permitted is what's permitted via the grandfathering that was done in the past. The current operator is in violation of that. They have an outstanding violation. Solely Engineering has been onboarded to try to help rectify that violation. They came with one solution. It was not favorable by the commission. They're putting their heads together. They're coming together with some other solutions. I will tell you that what this is doing is it's limiting their ability to store some of those vehicles in the rear that they have right now in the fenced-in vehicles. So it's actually kind of constricting what they're doing even more. So not a bad thing in my opinion. And they will have to, if they want to continue to use that, they're going to have to re-dictate which spaces are going to be used as the 13 overnight personal vehicles that can be stored in that area as part of the special exception permit, if they want that to go through. We don't know if that will still be the business that's there when this goes in. Again, they're putting their heads together to figure out how they want to moving forward. So at the moment, we're a little bit in a pause as we try to come up with a mitigation method. What I will say to anybody that's listening to this, we are permitting them to come to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a SDD with a current violation on the property. However, they will not be able to get a certificate of zoning compliance, so they will not be able to put a shovel into the ground until that violation is rectified. So they have now until that happens to make sure that we are coming up with a solution that works with both this SDD as well as what's permitted.
So on the north side of 604 Main Street, currently there's a dumpster and there's parking of vehicles. That's going to be, have a curb and they're not going to park vehicles and put a dumpster there anymore?
Correct. I mean,
Yes.
that's what the plan shows. Now the permit that they have now, again, for the use and how they park vehicles in that area, they're not in compliance with. So they never had a dumpster was never supposed to be in that location. That was only supposed to be parked with passenger vehicles that they were doing repair on. So again, you know, part of this is trying to clean up some of the issues that we have. We have a sightline issue that happens at that intersection with Bart and Main Street. So the hope is as part of that, putting that island in and things of that nature and taking the cars out from exactly the location that you're talking about is going to open that sightline distance a little bit more. So as part of this, they are also just naturally trying to rectify some of the issues that we're having right now. But the use is still a big issue.
This is by no means meant to go outside of the scope of wetlands. But just because I do have concerns about the use of that space,
100%.
you know, violations.
No.
Now-
And that goes downhill into the wetlands from a stormwater.
Right, and
So there
regrading
is
could make that
an
a greater risk, right? I see that 604. So this is the same not the auto body shop, but the building is the same ownership?
It's one lot, so 600, 604, and 590 are all on one parcel.
Are they tenants of that?
Yes,
They're tenants of the same owners?
correct.
Property.
So this owner also has motivation to
Yeah.
rectify that violation
That gives me a-
before he can do this work.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, there are currently probably 8 dumpsters in the back, two of which were added by 600 Main Street when the Havana and the boxing place came in and some other things. And those are typically, in the last few months, have been overflowing before they get picked up. So you're taking out 8 current dumpsters, and I see that there's only 4. I don't know, I'm just wondering how you ascertaining, and what about Aubuchon? Because Aubuchon has 2 of their own, and they're always full, or near capacity. No concerns there, but they manage theirs. Unfortunately, the ones behind 600 are mismanaged, and there's garbage bags can't be put in because it's overflowing, so they're put on the side, and sometimes they get taken by the truck, and sometimes they don't.
Right.
It's not a good situation.
Yeah, I guess that could be something that can be remediated with the schedule of the timing of pickups. Maybe
Yeah.
a more frequent process. That's something that's spoken and determined with the refuse company that actually goes to the site.
I'll just ask you to take another look at the amount of trash and refuse and the number of dumpsters, and perhaps we need to put another couple dumpsters on the southern side or closer to, I don't know, because right now it's right outside where the loading zone is for Aubuchon is got a couple of their own dumpsters, and and then down on the corner where the coffee shop puts their grounds and all the other stuff from the coffee shop on the corner. So just, I'd ask you to take a good look at that. Please.
Fluffy greens. So this is being proposed to be
The
built
coffee shop right here.
entirely on that grassy area,
It's
or is it gonna be a little bit on the pavement in the back there too, or is it? Because there's a massive amount of grass back there, that absorbs a lot of water. So I just wasn't sure if the entirety of the proposed 21 storage is that gonna be all on that grassy area and gonna get paved over?
Most of the contractor bays are located in the grass area. There is, some of the existing pavement limits do run through a portion of it, but yes, that's correct.
Okay.
I guess we'll need to see those calculations.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can you tell me what exactly are your refuse container concerns?
dumpster container,
Yeah,
you're overflowing.
your concern is mostly just of the trash, just a quantity, making sure that there's enough
It's enough, right?
to manage the trash.
Because right now, and it just happens, but Aubuchon's got their pallets and they wrap them in clear plastic, and that gets blown into the wetlands, and there's, just garbage in the parking lot that, not taken care of. But on a regular basis, I think people besides the businesses might be putting their trash in. Now, that's not a matter for us, but I'm just saying, all I note is that those 2 new dumpsters behind Havana are always full by the time they getting picked up. So.
Yeah, I'll definitely make note of that.
Do we need to take any action right now?
We need to submit a physical report to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So what I would propose is a letter from the Inland Wetland Commission to the Planning and Zoning Commission dated December 11th, 2024. It would read something like, please be advised that during the regularly scheduled meeting of the Town of Monroe Inland Wetland Commission held on December 11th, 2024, the commission reviewed the following application for appropriateness and or other factors that may have impacts on regulated wetlands. ZCA RRA 2024-04, file number 1030, proposed regulation amendment petition application to establish a special development district, SDD number 7, within the Main Street Design District overlay located at 590, 600, and 604 Main Street. It also lists the owner and soil engineering as representative. Accordingly, the commission determined that the proposed regulation amendment petition is acceptable relative to the potential for development with the following items proposed for consideration. No storage of items between the rear of the proposed contractor's bays and the wetlands. Consideration of the refuse container quantity and location in order to provide an appropriate volume for the existing and proposed uses.
What about a fence? Do you guys think a fence is needed? I don't know if you're familiar, but do we want a fence between the wetlands and the back of the building?
I think it depends on how much more disturbance that creates to the existing vegetation. Like we don't want to impact the vegetation. I believe from a screening perspective, absolutely on, the eastern side. I think the question is it going to do more harm than good to put it through the vegetation in the rear?
Can I add, just, you may have explained this, I apologize if that's true, but if this gets, so planning and zoning is asking for just our review right now, right? If they approve this, does the application to build that building come before us because of its proximity? So that's when we would be concerning ourselves with things.
In my opinion, the fence thing is absolutely something you can consider when they come in.
I just wanted to make sure I didn't.
So once it gets approved, they have 6 months to put in a special exception permit, and that includes all the stormwater management calculations, the traffic count, all of those things in order to prove out that they aren't going to have any substantial impacts, and it comes to the Inland Wetland Commission at that time as well for a full application.
So we're going to see it again.
But in general, am I correct in saying that the petition is acceptable relative for, the scope that you reviewed it for the potential development, just with those two concerns?
On paper, it's got a lot of merits.
Yeah.
Looks good on paper, but,
Okay, so I would ask, though, that there is an actual vote for, we could say, a positive referral to the Planning and Zoning Commission for the zone boundary change. You don't want to say positive?
No.
We can change that. We can
Just
change
that
that.
we're willing to entertain it, because I don't want it to be interpreted that we're approving this. We're not. We're just saying, yeah, we'll review it.
Well, you technically can't, the question is really like, if you would have had a substantial issue with it, that you wouldn't even want them to approve the zone boundary change, like this would be your opportunity to state that you think that, there's substantial fundamental issues, with
Right,
what's
so-
here.
I would phrase it this way, right? Like exactly what I said before is that it does encroach quite a bit into the upland review area, right? So, but there are a lot of positives. I would just again say, highlight all your positives to the commissioners, when you provide more information. And, I think we probably leave it as we want to hear more, but yeah.
It's not progress with planning and zoning until we provide our feedback.
Your feedback is just on the zone change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
we don't want to waste time on it. If we're not going to say, if we're going to say
I would give
no.
a positive referral for the zone change with the note that there are still concerns about things like, the impervious surface and the regrading that will be reviewed upon submission of an application to inland wetlands. We certainly
Somehow,
can't-
right, we got to say we're not opposed, but we need to hear more.
We'd like to hear more, yeah.
We're on the fence that I want put up.
Yeah, but not with the rezoning. That's not my concern. It's just the application. So
It's like you're asking for our permission for them to make their decision, and I don't want to step on their toes by saying, you have our blessing. It's not in front of us yet, so. Yeah, we should say, we don't have any major concerns, but we do have issues we'd like to have addressed. So if they want to move forward with the rezoning, there's no major roadblocks that we see at this point. However, there are details that we'd like clarified.
All right, so let me think about this. Are we okay with the wording, motion by Commissioner that the Inland Wetland Commission takes no exception
I'm okay with that.
to the Planning and Zoning Commission, takes no exception for the application to the Planning and Zoning for zone boundary change. And I'll still keep in accordingly, the commission determined that the proposed I'll use the same wording again. Accordingly, the commission determined that they take no exception to the proposed regulation petition relative to the potential for development with the following items proposed for future consideration.
So do we need to make a motion?
Which includes no storage considered. You need to make a motion because this can't just be like me assuming that
What's the motion?
Can I just ask first, like, so what are if you're listing specific items, right? Like,
Yep.
maybe you could just go over that again.
No storage of items between the rear of the proposed contractor's bay and the wetlands, consideration of the refuse container quantity and location in order to provide an appropriate volume for the existing and proposed usage. Additional review will be required for the increase of impervious surface.
But this will come as an application.
Correct.
Yeah, so
So-
we'll have an opportunity to address
We
all
have
that. anyway.
absolutely
Yeah.
no obligation to approve this plan as it exists right now with information lacking in it.
Right.
We're just saying, whether we say the bays need to be pulled in a little bit to move away from the wetlands, or we need to cut half of the bay, or like whatever, the grading needs to be different. I'm not suggesting any of that's what happens, but we'll have our opportunity to discuss.
Right.
You have your opportunity to request mitigation
Yeah.
that you feel is appropriate for what they are trying to propose. However, the assumption is when an SDD gets approved that conceptually,
We're not-
people think there's an
We're not
avenue
going to say this
forward.
property can't be developed.
Correct, but conceptually, there's an avenue forward in the realm of what they
But I
are.
don't want to limit us to those few things that you listed either, because I don't want us to come back and say, well, you only said these three things, so
No,
you can't address something else.
And that doesn't limit to you. The question is as a resident, I would take exception to the fact if this came in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission with being 25 feet from a wetland and it hadn't gone to inland wetlands for you guys to at least have an understanding. Because if fundamentally you were like, no way are we ever going to be able to get on board with that? That's not in the realm of possibility that they're not doing this, they're not doing that. It's not worth the applicant's time, effort, and energy to then move forward to the next, part of the process.
So we need a motion to approve the general concept.
Oh, we don't even have to say approved. Motion that the Inland Wetland Commission takes no exception for the application for the zone boundary change. And then do you want me to still list those other items, or you don't want me to list them at all?
Do you think it's helpful to planning and zoning?
I do. I think it's helpful to have them know where you
Here's how-
guys are fundamentally starting to think about.
For example, maybe exactly.
For example, and
Limited to, but just,
not limited,
Consideration,
not limited to.
so here's a few things as an example.
but not
We
limited
reserve the
to.
right to find other things that we like or don't like later.
This is a positive, right? Because like we want to give the opportunity for you to talk more about the filtering procedures and all that, right? So I'm trying to do whatever we can.
Right, we'll provide all the info during the formal application for sure.
Just to be clear, that upper review area is that dotted, I don't see it on the legend, but it kind of goes in, and so most of the bays are in the upper review area.
That's correct.
Right. So I would like to say that make a motion to proceed with, however but I don't want to say we approve it.
Yeah, no, I don't like that word either in this case.
Want you to go forward.
To continue,
Make a motion to accept the notice, the planning and zoning, that we take no exception to this
Application
application
rezoning,
for,
proceeding.
application for rezoning with the following areas of concern referenced as examples.
And not limited
but
to,
not limited to.
Well, that'll be part of that'll be part of
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Kelly for everything he
All
just
that.
said. Do we have a second?
I second.
A second by Commissioner Zimmery. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, it's no opposed. Okay,
You
thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you for that.
Okay. moving on.
Regular meeting,
Yes,
which I will recuse myself from because I am in a budding property.
this is the 100 Cross L.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so IWC 2024-10, file number 1506, 100 Cross Hill Road. Addition to rear of existing home with a new septic tank and stormwater gallery, all within the upland review area. Gary Peroni, applicant owner, FP Carpentry LL, representative. Anybody here for that?
Okay. The applicant is not here to present, but they did make a resubmission, so I'm going to read the exhibits into the record from the beginning, if that's, Chairman thinks it's appropriate. Exhibit 1 is the application and plan set, prepared by R.J. Gallagher Jr. and Associates, dated November 5th, 2024. Exhibit number 2 is the preliminary review by myself, Kathleen Gallagher, document dated November 12th, 2024. Exhibit 3 is the certified mail receipts for the Department of Public Health and Aquarian, dated November 15th, 2024. Exhibit number 4 is town engineer comments and bonding information by town engineer James DeMayo, dated November 15th, 2024. Exhibit number 5 is the revised stormwater erosion and sediment control plan by R.J. Gallagher and Associates, document revised through November 14th, 2024. Exhibit 6 is the updated preliminary review by myself, Kathleen Gallagher, document revised through December 11th, 2024. So Exhibit 5 is the most up-to-date plans by the applicant. This shows their revisions to several of our comments, which just included the location of the silt fence, which was previously shown actually in the wetlands. We had them move that. The inland wetland markers that were shown to the side. And there is one outstanding comment by the town engineer that has to do with the Coltech system. I don't think that that would impede this from moving forward. If the commission thought it was appropriate, we are happy to make that a condition of the approval. But the proposed project is a deck in the rear with proposed steps, a deck in the rear, proposed addition with steps in an already previously developed area, and they are proposing stormwater galleries underground in order to mitigate the additional impervious surface.
Are there any concerns?
This is pretty straightforward from our perspective. We're always happy for the opportunity to actually do some stormwater management. They flagged the wetlands. It ended up being a pretty oddly shaped pond and wetlands, as part of the project. So it's a little bit of a tight space in the sense of how they need to reach the wetlands and get to that area. But, we're happy with the stormwater management that they're providing for that space. I will. The town engineer just said, are the Coltech C4s still available? I do not see reference to them on the website. If revised to a Coltech 100 units, it will still comply with the requirements, just not in the 2 times factor safety listed in the report. So again, I do believe that that's something that their engineer can work out with our engineer. The town engineer also had a comment about the silt fence, which was also one of my comments. And they satisfied all of my other related comments as it related to noticing. They did have to notice Aquarian and the Department of Public Health. We've not received any comments from them. I did not expect to receive any comments from them. They did all of their proper noticing requirements because they are within a public water supply watershed.
Would it be? Anybody have any questions?
All right, I was gonna ask it after you're done, but yeah, go ahead. Any comments?
Would it be, if we were to motion to approve this, Kathleen, would we have to comment on the bond recommendation? 'Cause
Yeah,
it's
so
not there.
there's a bond recommendation of $3,800. So if you did want to approve it, my suggestions would be two conditions, which is the bond recommendation of $3,800, and to satisfy, the town engineer's, comment memo dated November 15th, 2024.
I'll make a motion to,
I just want to see if anybody had any questions before we get to that point.
Thank you, no.
Okay.
all right, I'll make a motion to approve the application under the conditions of a bond application of $3,800 and the satisfaction the outstanding comments by town engineers to be satisfied.
We have a motion with conditions by Commissioner Kelly. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Commissioner Saban. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so we have no public hearings. Nothing to deliberate. So moving on to bond releases. So IWC 2015 -19, file number 974, 64 Cambridge Drive, Section 4 re-subdivision partial bond release.
So, 64 Cambridge Drive, a portion of their project is finished. Did a site inspection.
This is just for the cul-de-sac.
This is just for the cul-de-sacs of Section 4. And because they have satisfied everything, they're asking for a partial bond, they're asking for a bond release, going out there, taking a look at everything. One of the conditions of the approval was that the plants be inspected for 2 years. So I suggested we leave 25% of the bond, and release the 75% of the bond. We have a bond release report, and we have a letter from Solely Engineering requesting the release of the bond.
Feel okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, some of the plants were, all of the plants were there, some of them were ailing, which is why I wanted to leave 25% on the table.
Anybody have any questions about that? We want to make a motion? Somebody's got to make a motion.
I'll make a motion. I can't make motions.
Make a motion for a partial bond release of 75% of the bond.
We have a motion by Commissioner Kelly to release 75% of the bond. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Sabia. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Okay. Moving on to agent activities report.
So I have a couple of agent approvals here. I have a couple of enforcement issues or items to talk about. Agent approvals, the first one, IAA 2024-25, file number 1508, is 14 Doris Drive. The applicant is replacing a 10 by 10 shed with a slightly larger shed, which is 10 by 14. So they're adding 40 square feet of impervious surface. The shed that is existing is falling down and they want to put up another one. The new shed is in the same location of the existing shed. It's approximately 15 feet away from previously mapped wetlands, which is why I bring it to you. They add an additional 40 square feet of impervious surface with minimal ground disturbance. The shed is going to sit on concrete blocks that are concrete blocks just sitting on top of concrete blocks. So it's not sonotubes, it's not digging into the ground. So it's minimal ground disturbance, a little ground disturbance, but minimal. The other thing to note is that the 15 feet off of the wetland, off of the mapped wetlands, it's existing lawn right now anyway. So it's the shed, 15 feet of lawn into wetlands. I did investigate other locations on the site to suggest where that shed should go. There's a septic system on the north, just north of this. The only other location, if I wanted to get it further away from the wetlands, would make it in the front of the house, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense for a storage shed. So I issued an agent approval on that. Any questions on it? Pretty straightforward there. The next item was IAA 2024-26, file number 1507, 32 Winthrop Place. It was an emergency replacement of a failed septic system within the upland review area. Located approximately 20 feet from mapped wetlands, a new septic tank replaced an old septic tank, and the saturated leaching field material was removed from the site, making way for 45 tons of new sand to replace that. According to the health department, this was, and according to the soils, this was the only feasible location for leaching fields. Due to the emergency of this, the nature of the emergency, I issued an agent approval, and I hope that meets with all of your approval. Septic was backing up into the house.
On behalf of the residents, that was nice of you. Thank you.
I didn't, yeah, it would have been 3 weeks before they could sit in front of you for it. So, any questions on that? Moving on, IAA 2024-27, file number 1510 is 350 Barnhill Road. Addition to the side of an existing home with stormwater retention system within the URA. So the project is located about 50 feet outside or inside the URA, outside the wetlands. There's a Coltech stormwater retention system that was proposed, which was going to be about 15 feet off of the wetlands. One of the conditions of the approval was to move those Coltech systems. So that puts them about 45 feet away from the wetlands. So we were able to move it. Other conditions of the approval were to add wetland markers and to install silt fence, and for the silt fence to be inspected before construction. And I issued them an agent approval on that because it was 50 feet outside. Questions? We have a couple of enforcement items to talk about, of which we have property owners here. The first one will be IWV 2024-4, file number 1504, 30 Pepperidge Road. Clearing of vegetation. Yeah, clearing of vegetation, importing driveway material, wood chips, irrigation, growing plant materials, storing masonry supplies, plastic pots, pallets, various other landscape materials within potential wetlands and/or upland review area. And there was a similar violation here in 2013. So just the background on this, a complaint was filed. I requested a voluntary site inspection. The property owners gave me the site inspection. Further research revealed a similar violation back in 2013. The current violation potentially extends further into an abutting property. I had requested a wetland delineation. They had a soil scientist come out. The wetland delineation revealed that there was no wetlands on the property that we're talking about. I am waiting for, and the residents are waiting for a site survey to find out exactly where their back property line is. If you'll see in your packets, 20 Lorraine Drive, this notice of violation, I'm sorry, 30 Pepperidge Road. I've got pictures of what it looks like now. And the first item that you'll see in this packet is my notice of violation that I issued. The second item in this package was a letter that I had sent to the abutting property owner, which I think we've encroached onto somebody else's property. I sent them a notice of this and haven't heard back from the abutting property. The next item in here was a response from the homeowner. So they're being very proactive and compliant with requests. If you'll refer to this plan right here in your packet, this shows you the yellow line is the property line. You see where it says 30 Pepperidge Road? That property line, the other property on the left side of that line is 197 Cross Hill Road. This driveway goes all the way into 197 Cross Hill Road. The numbers that you see, you'll see the wetlands that are mapped wetlands on 197. And then you'll see the arrows and the numbers refer to the pictures on the next couple of pages. So it'll give you a pretty good idea of what this looks like. So picture number one you'll see is taken, and essentially where I'm taking the picture from, that's approximately where that property line is according to our GIS. A quick calculation of square footage will agree with that. That is probably where the back property line is. Picture number two just shows you some materials that are being stored in there. So they're growing some potted plant material. There's some hoop house material in there. Firewood. Picture number three, you'll see some pallets. You'll see some masonry supplies. Picture number four, you'll see some empty pots, stones. And the final picture is a skid steer that was back there temporarily, or a skid steer that sits back there. And then finally in this packet, the very last thing you'll see is the resolution from 2013. So I'm a little confused by this, and maybe the property owners can clear this up, but back in 2013, there was a violation issued for a very similar activity going on in this property. Either at the time a survey wasn't done, or this violation since 2013 has encroached further back into 197. Any questions from me before I invite the...
Who's the owner of 197 Cross Hill Road?
Mr. Vole, I think the last name was. There's the letter that I had issued to him. Yeah. Mr. Vole. And I believe the property owners, the owners of 30 Pepperidge, I believe they've already contacted him. I think they've been in contact with him. I sent him a certified letter and I got no response, but I'm informing him of a violation that might have taken place on his property unintentionally.
And his is just residential as well?
His is residential, yes.
So the Campos are here tonight?
Yes, and here is Hernando and Maria.
You're welcome to come up and speak.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from them.
Here, come on up.
State your name and the address into the microphone when you get up to the mic.
Marie Campus to Pepperidge Road.
Another camps to the Pepperidge Road.
So, first I want to talk about the first violation that you mentioned. We never got the letter of violation. We were notified that there may be a violation, not a violation, but that they wanted to inspect our property. They came onto our property, two gentlemen from the town. They never said that there was anything wrong or anything. I'm stating exactly what, I don't remember who they were, but none of you were, that are here, weren't there. But that it was just said that it was fine. So I honestly, I don't know why there's a violation. We were told that one of our neighbors complained, and that's why they were coming. And we willingly, I asked them to come out that same day. And they said, we waited for, I think, a couple of days when they could come out. That's that one. The other one, I guess you could talk about it.
Yeah, pretty much unintentionally, because this property that I did have no idea they belonged to somebody else. Because they never had a chance to the surveyor, the property. And to me, it was part of my property. Because if you look the way the landscape, looks like it belongs to us. And I don't really did intentionally say invade people's property. I'm never do such a thing, because I know it's a big headache to that. But I just try to use the land to organize my property the way it is. But I have no clue if it was a real violation. I am here to fix what is wrong, try to comply with the wetland permission. Whatever has to be done, I'm here for it.
We are waiting to get the survey. We did get the soil sample done, and got that done. I mean, we do want to remediate whatever has to be done. Honestly, I don't want to be encroaching. We don't want to be encroaching on anyone's property. Unbeknownst to us, we would never be down, further. We thought the wetlands were, like I mentioned to Andrew, where there's a little stream where that little wooden part is over it. That's what we thought the wetlands were. So, we'll do what we need to do to remediate and fix everything the way it should be.
And also, I asked them to come to our place, to scope a little bit to see what has to be done. And some say, we contact the soil science people, and they came, they take some time, they are so busy right now, and you call the surveyor people too, because we really try to speed up our side of the process. But you rely on people to come back to us. They say they will be coming, I don't know when, but the science guy already did the work. He says pretty much
Sure.
the perimeter that's on the map, everything's like a dry land. I don't know about the Mr.
Well, what I told Andrew and I told Bill Kenny was we would like to have, and I told Mr. Vogt, that we would like to have that property where we have the driveway going into, it's not, but the gravel, if they could test it and see where or how far it is from wetlands, if we're in wetlands, and if so, if they could give us, because they do come up with a landscape remediation, what to take out, what to put back in, and what we need to do as a plan to remediate it.
So how involved is the owner of 197 Cross Hill? Because, I see two major issues here. One, we've got wetland violations. and two, they're operating on somebody else's property, and all that needs to be moved off.
Correct.
So-
Correct. A violation has to be remediated, and it's not on their property, as far as we know. So they are waiting for the surveyor to know exactly where that line is. And we're waiting to hear from the new homeowner, I mean, the 197, that property owner.
Right.
Who received the letter and was told that he could come to this tonight.
Right.
He would certainly need to be known that he knows now that there's a violation. What he needs to know now is how to fix that violation.
Right, 'cause-
Who's going to be responsible for fixing that violation?
Right, because technically right now, he's responsible,
Yes,
because he's the owner, and it
yes,
falls on him, even though they're the ones that put him in that position.
right.
So technically, the violation is, it is for,
On two properties.
Two properties, right?
So does I guess it sounds like you did get the report, you did see the report, and
I
this,
saw the soil, the wetlands was delineated. Now, I couldn't have the wetlands delineated on 197. That was not their property. They had their property tested, and there were no wetlands detected on their property. Now, there are mapped wetlands on 197.
I'm just
Okay.
thinking that this might be a little bit misleading though, right? Because if you see the markings from the wetlands, 23 feet, 19 feet, that's within the upland review area, right?
Yes.
The driveway.
Yep.
So what I'm asking is that based on the soil scientist's report or not?
No. That's based on the GIS.
Okay.
So we couldn't have that, we tried, but they said we couldn't, because Mr. Bold would have to give us permission, and that's why we contacted him twice, and he said he would let us know when he could come by, because we'd like to show him where, we are into his property, and we also have a proposal for him from the soil scientist to be able to test it, but it needs his approval. So we can't do anything without his approval.
Right, so it sounds like the owners of,
97.
no, 30.
Yeah.
The owners of 30, right? Are doing what they should to try to remediate this, but like, what if 197 never gets, is there some time frame where 197 has to get back with some sort of answer, or
If they're unresponsive.
if they're unresponsive, right? What's the course of action at that point?
Okay,
Question
so.
is when
yeah.
are you gonna then issue a cease and correct to 197, basically?
I think they may have been traveling, to be honest with you, because I called them before Thanksgiving and after, and he said, give me a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving.
I think that's-
I his door one night because I panicked because it's not a property. So,
But I think that's fair, right? If we're talking a couple of weeks, right?
And it is the holidays.
Yeah, it's.
Right, but what do we do in the event that he just continues to ignore
Yeah.
the situation? I mean, we're hoping it's not going to get to that, but is there a plan in place or other protocols for
Going
that?
up the ladder, we start doing
Okay.
a cease and correct.
We don't want, I assume
is it
it's,
really just a matter of approval for the owners of 30 Pepperidge to be able to go onto the?
They would need approval from 197 to correct the violation
right.
that they created.
He could provide that to them in writing, though, if he's unavailable.
Surely. So my question to the commission at that point would be, would you want to see a remediation plan based on what you see in those pictures? Would you want to see a remediation plan put together by a landscape architect or a wetland scientist?
How could you do that, right?
You
Because
don't have all the
you
information.
don't have all the information yet.
Mhm.
Right, because I think we said we were just going by the GIS map, which is not, as we know, you can't just go by the GIS map, right? You have to have the soil scientist out there,
Right.
the delineation lines. And at that point, then we can take that next step, right?
I have a question, and you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to. Are you guys entertaining any sort of conversation to buy a portion of any of that property?
We were thinking if he could come to our property just to see, because if it's all wetlands, then we still have to remediate the problem.
Mhm.
Because we didn't know it was wetlands.
Hey, if I know
So-
it was a dry land, you could try to negotiate.
Yes, we would definitely offer to purchase.
Yeah.
But if it's not, we still have to remediate.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
We had,
we
we
still
had,
need his approval, which I think he would give to us, because I told him, you're not gonna be responsible for any of the costs to remediate. I just need I told him I need your signature on the
So do we need to
proposal.
put this on pause until we hear from 197?
I guess
There's not much we could do until we get down there and they map it out and know what the real problem is.
the only thing is that if we tell Andrew today what we think should happen, for example, if we need a soil scientist, something like that involved, and then Mr. Voll responds tomorrow, then you can tell the homeowners here what their next steps are, and they don't have to wait for the next meeting. Like is that what you're thinking, Andrew?
okay, what I'm thinking is that we have mapped wetlands on 197. Whether we know exactly where those mapped wetlands are or not, by looking at this violation extends pretty close to that, and we're certainly within the upland review area where we have driveway. So I don't think it's a question of do we have to remediate. I think it's a matter of how would you like to remediate? It's clearly in the upland review area, and it's a driveway. It's a machine leaking oil, and so it has to be fixed. It's a matter of how you would like to see that remediation, whether you want to see that remediation administratively or through the commission. There's two different remediations. There's an application for an administrative remediation, and there's an application for an IWC remediation. If we go the IWC remediation, we're going to need it. I would say you're going to need a wetland scientist or a plan from a landscape architect. Or do you feel comfortable letting them come up with a remediation plan and for me to review it?
And to add on more, if you just say yes to it being a commission remediation, I think then, do you guys have any thoughts now so that they can start to, put together what they think that remediation might look like? So they come to you back prepared with something that is in line with your thoughts.
They're two very different processes,
My concern is that the ignorance that you had that it's not your property or it is your property and that there isn't wetlands, and yet you put this lovely shed in there, and it's not a new shed, it's been there for a while. And there's a lot of like you said, hoop houses and stuff like that. Why, are you doing commercial work back here? Or-
No, this is a leftover material that I use in my own place. Because I do landscape business, okay, but I don't do like a masonry, none of this.
But you have a lot of
I
material.
just store this because I thought it was part of my land. If you come to my place, you can take a look at how it is. It's not like I devastated forest and cut out the trees and I disturbed the entire nature. It was pretty much dry. The way I just I put some gravel and extend my driveway. I think I offer anybody to come and take a look. I think if you look at person, you can get that idea what the situation is.
I wouldn't mind going if you're going at some point, Andrew.
I'll be happy to bring you over there. I was already out there. I could tell you this, Armando runs a landscaping business, not out of the house. The zoning enforcement officer was there with me. It is an RF1, so it's, you cannot operate a business out of there.
You got that?
So there are no commercial vehicles parked there, but there is plants being grown there in container stock. The property is very well maintained. The property is taken care of. I think Armando encroached upon this property, didn't realize that it wasn't his property, didn't realize that there were wetlands back there. But the fact is, there are wetlands back there, and we have a couple of sheds back there. And, it needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
It needs to be remediated.
Big enough violation, we gotta,
It's a big enough violation that I was bringing it to your attention.
I think we had to go the commission route. I mean, unless you guys think otherwise, but I feel
You
more,
want to see a plan? Okay.
we gotta see a plan. I mean, the fact that it's on, like, it's not like he's 5 feet over the property line. We're talking,
We're talking probably 30, 40 feet into another property.
and you can see it. There's a lot
Right up to,
on here.
if you see some of the pictures.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. This,
Yeah.
I'd like to see you start, first off, I'd like to cease parking any kind of vehicles in that area, right?
There's no parking back there.
Okay, but
We got this
the oil leaking from the skid,
So,
So the Bobcat?
The Bobcat. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's on your property?
I don't,
Yeah.
yeah, you park there, that's it.
No, I don't want you to park there,
but
but
that,
you don't have a right to park there.
yeah.
right, so.
On 197. It's not your property.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't know it was
That's what I was gonna go,
Yeah.
yeah.
I understand. No, I understand.
But you guys know now, so
Yes,
Now we know.
absolutely.
let's start moving all this stuff out of here, start cleaning it up.
It's not like I know how, it's.
And it is moved out of there. It's happening.
Did you have
So
something?
I would suggest if what you're asking is to remove the vehicles, I would suggest not asking them to remove everything out of that area right now, because that in and of itself is destructive.
Yeah.
So I think we need a plan before we start pulling up driveway,
Right.
certainly to get the plants off of there.
Let's get a good plan put together. This is more than just moving a couple things.
Yeah.
This is,
I think you're right. We need to hear before things start
Yeah.
happening.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the leaking oil is another topic, right? But, I think, listen, sometimes it's not always, we need to educate the residents a little bit more as well, right? So, we're going to do that. But I think that, and I'm not sure of the conversations that you've had, but I think in fairness to the residents, like we should educate them as to, what wetlands are, what the upland review area is, what the footage is, things like that, right? Just in fairness, I think they need to understand that. Maybe they already do, right? I'm not going to ask you the questions now, but I think we need to educate them on that. And then I think and I agree with the chairman, right? I think, that's probably the best course of action because it is well into the other property. And I think Kathleen mentioned, one thing, there are other options for you. So I think, you're probably going to want to understand what your other options are, talk to your neighbor, see what you might want to work out there in terms of delineation lines, things like that. There are a lot of options for you, but you do need to realize, right, that now that so that's all.
After this meeting, if they happen again, I can consider myself guilty. But I honestly never have no clue that property belongs to somebody else.
Really?
If you look at the way it is, if anybody come and take a look, it looks like it's mine because. No,
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go there with you at some point. I don't know if anybody wants to join.
Connect with me and we'll make a special trip out there. And any other commissioners that want to come out.
Yeah, send an email, open it up to whoever wants to go.
Gotcha. All right.
At this point,
Yep.
we have to just pause this. There's no,
We need to make a motion to have the remediation done through the commission. Do we need to make a motion for that? No, we don't need to make a motion.
May I call Mr. Bull and ask him if he could sign off on the work so I could get it started?
That's going to have to happen at some point anyway, so I don't see any reason.
So, but
why
I'm
not.
saying, could I do that before you do anything?
no, we can't start any work until we see the.
No.
For the soil scientist.
Oh, yeah.
Delineate.
Oh, sure.
That's what I'm saying, not.
Kind of, yeah. I'd say-
And then I will contact Andrew and get him
Yes,
that.
if you can do anything to help get the information that they're asking for, which is
Right.
wetland soil scientist and
Right.
that shown on some sort of
Yeah.
map or survey, yes. I would strongly encourage
Right,
that.
I just want to get his opinion on who can sign off on it. Okay.
I want to believe to sleep again, because I know all the situation, honestly. This is.
I would never put a shed on my neighbor's property.
I don't know, I mean, I don't, maybe it doesn't, maybe it does look like their property.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
to go out there and look at it, right?
But ignorance is not an excuse.
No, but sometimes it's a little deceiving, right? Like, just go out there, take a look at it and then form your opinion, you know, so.
But total ignorance is not an excuse.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
well, they're gonna fix it,
so I don't
so,
wanna.
Okay.
All right,
so we're good with that?
we're good with that.
Made, we're,
Yep, we're good with that. Any questions, call?
No, oh, yes.
If you really want to make a motion, sure, but they're gonna actually submit an actual.
right, exactly.
And they're gonna come together with a remediation plan put together by soil scientist or wetland scientist.
You feel awesome.
All right?
Not about the shed, because the way I want to make sure everybody understands. It's not like I have this property here, this is mine. And I know this is like a blah, or whatever it is, I go on that side, put a shed there. This was a continuation of the property. All the way in the end. It's like, it's not like, because I didn't know the survey before. Now I know.
Yeah, there's no judgment of that. I haven't seen the property.
I'm just trying to clarify, because sometimes the way you have a picture of a situation, you look one way, and I'm trying to explain the way it is now. That's why it's very easy to confuse the property.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Take a look, thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I didn't show this to you.
Okay, good night, thank you very much.
Good night. All right, one more,
Yeah, one more, excuse me. Yeah, one more enforcement action, IWV 2024-06, file number 1511, 20 Lorraine Drive. It's the removal of a few large trees within the upland review area, and some of them were actually in wetlands. So a complaint was filed. I requested a voluntary site inspection. The homeowners granted me the site inspection. Going out there, there were a number of large trees that were removed. They were cut down. They were not, the stumps were not ground down. The homeowners are here to talk to the commission. In this packet here that you guys got on Friday, you'll see 20 Lorraine Drive. There's a list of the sizes of the trees that I was able to calculate. So it's about 13, was it? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 large trees. There are some pictures that show you, approximately what we're looking at. Like I said, the homeowners are here and unknowingly cut these trees down. They're here to talk on their behalf. I will let you know that a number of years ago, a very large, all of these trees were 60 feet tall or so in the backyard. A couple of years ago, and I saw photographs, a tree came down in their yard, very close to their deck, which was the reason why they cut these trees down. They cut the trees down unknowingly that they weren't able to because of wetlands or upland review area. So I think there needs to be a remediation.
2 trees fell on that house and on a vehicle on the driveway for the past, let's say, 18 years. I've been living here since I was 3 years old. My name is.
I'm sorry, just say your name,
And address.
for the record.
Keith Pison, 20 Marine Drive.
Franklin Brothers, 20 Lorraine Drive.
I have to say again.
No, you're.
I just talked or?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I had no idea, we both had no idea that we can cut trees down.
We didn't know we had a full permit
Yeah, we didn't know.
whatsoever, we had no idea.
Yeah, so we did this for the safety of our home, and my family lives near, my mother lives next door in an apartment. So right by her apartment, there's several large trees, and chunks of the trees were coming down. A lot of these trees have weak roots because they're in a swamp. And every time these trees came down, it had holes in the trunk, just showing that they're rotting inside and out. The tree that fell was from the woods. It was huge. We didn't even know it was gonna fall, and it fell in one of those storms. And couldn't believe that it reached our house. So a lot of trees, parts of trees, tops of trees have come down on our property. We also have a gas generator where by my mom's apartment, it's a standby generator. Several big branches have come down right near the gas generator, and it's for the safety of my mom as well. So we cut them down, and our neighbor complained. And we would like to, we understand we have to remediate the situation, but instead of planting more trees, I really don't want to do that. We're just wondering if we can plant some shrubs that are native to the area.
Eco-friendly shrubs or something
Because it doesn't look good right now. I mean, all we see is swamp. We don't want to see that either, so.
Well, you have swamp. You know how close the Smith Pond Brook is to these trees?
No.
It's right, it's off your property, right there.
Oh, the brook behind us.
Yeah, the brook.
Yes.
It's a live brook. These trees, that 36-inch maple, using the appropriate growth factor, that maple was 162 years old.
The one, which one?
The 36-inch maple, red maple,
Yeah.
using a 4.5 growth factor is 162 years old.
Mhm.
The American Beech, 24 inches, 144 years old. The other ones are all, the black birch is 120 years old. They have a different growth factor. These are old trees, and I get that the roots, and there might be some rotting, but they were functioning very well.
The beech was
The beech was
diseased and
dying. It had the
Micro.
microworm. Every year it was dying, and some of the branches had no leaves on it. And so when the guy came out to cut the trees, he said to me, "You gotta cut this down," because he goes, if I come down here, the top of this tree is gonna die within a year. So unfortunately, the beech trees all have diseases.
Fine, but the problem is that, again, ignorance is not an excuse, and you need to think about what you're doing and come to town. And you disagree, you think that we should just.
I think that protecting your family
Yeah,
is a
No, I get
priority
that, I
for
get that.
every resident of
I
the.
just want a permit, that's all.
No, of course, I mean, we're working on it.
So those trees that we cut down, that you're talking about, the beech tree and the tree next to it, that tree was leaning right towards our house, and every time
I see the photos, we just had a 65-foot maple
Right
fall
there.
out of the house.
yeah, and
I haven't
that's
seen it
where
before.
the
I'm
tree
not
fell on our
gonna,
vehicle.
sorry, but I'm not gonna take the chance.
Right,
I'm not asking you to take a chance, sir.
right.
I'm asking you to get an application.
Okay, well,
They weren't unaware, now they're aware, right, so we're working through it.
it's
I
a
respect,
safety issue.
it is important to, I think it's a good practice, and this is not targeted at you, but for every resident, everybody in town, when you're making a decision to do something for your property, coming to town hall and asking doesn't hurt. And that's easy to say, and not everybody does it, not everybody knows to do it. And so I think that's the myth. But protecting your family from large trees that are a risk, to the safety of your family and your home is not something. I understand. If we're willing to do what's necessary to remediate it, then you're here. You're here. That's possible.
I would argue that if they came to us, if they knew in advance and they came to us and I photographed these trees beforehand, we would have granted a permit to take them down because there was a public health and safety
Risk.
issue. But the fact is that they didn't know better and they did not come and ask for that. Now, that being said, the neighbor, and if you take a look at the picture, the neighbor does have a wetlands tag on that tree, so that should have alerted you that there's wetlands back there, but
That tree was on the neighbor's
on
property?
the neighbor's property. I know.
How far from their property?
You can see it from the backyard. I mean, you can.
So I guess what I'm trying to get at is if that tree fell, would it reach the house?
Yes, actually, I could say this. I mean, all the trees that I looked at, well, of the stumps, judging by the size of the stump and guesstimating how big that tree was,
Bigger than the ones that.
there was a safety issue. So I'm not arguing that. I'll also state that for taking these trees down, would be by taking these trees down, there's fairly low impact to the wetlands as far as the canopies of these trees weren't, the sun angle wasn't such that these trees were providing cooling effect on the stream that's back there. So I think by removing these trees really is not that impactful to the wetlands. Okay, again, it's a violation that happened and we need to fix it. I actually think that by planting a number of wetland-friendly shrubs would be more beneficial than the 6 trees that came out. Again, I wish we had the foresight to do this, preemptively, but now that we're here, I think it can be remediated in a much more significant way to benefit the wetlands than.
You proposed that to them yet?
Yeah.
Have you given them
Yes.
those details?
Yes.
Okay,
And they're all on board with whatever the commission would
right.
suggest.
So,
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I really appreciate you coming before us and talking openly, but I just.
Listen, I love nature, I love trees, and we didn't want to do this. I've been living here since I was 3 years old, and I've seen such a change in our weather pattern. I don't even remember a tree coming down when I was a kid, except in the woods. But now it's coming on towards the house. And I feel like the wetlands are coming up, they're creeping up towards us. And it just seems like it's getting wetter back there, and the root system is poor on a lot of these trees. I didn't want to cut these down, it was a big cost to us. And my mother is very nervous. She kept saying, we got to get rid of these trees. We got to get rid of these trees. There was more on her side. And she lives with us in an apartment and she's covered by them. And every time we had storms, I was always grabbing her and putting her in the basement with us because we're terrified. Just lately, the weather patterns have changed in these coming years. And all we hear is tree drops all the time, or parts of trees. The woods are really ugly. I mean, the tops of the trees are awful. A lot of trees in our woods. And I just don't feel safe. And now, believe it or not, when these trees are down, now I feel calm about it. I feel like I don't have to worry when we're in a house that something's gonna come down on it. So we have PTSD, I have to say. That tree that fell down just missed me by a few inches. I was on the deck when the tree came down. I was on there 1 minute before it came down. So.
I'm glad you're.
I know that our concern really is not aesthetics as to what it looks like, and it's more function of the
Yes.
wetlands.
Yeah.
But I did include this last photo here, which shows you, it has a pretty good indication of what this whole area looks like. They're mostly native shrubs there. There are some invasives, and my suggestion would be instead of planting however many large trees, I'm going to suggest that we have them plant shrubs in this whole area. It'll serve 2 functions. It'll be beneficial to the wetlands that are there. If we work together on it, we can make it also aesthetic for
Right.
them.
Right, no, I think it's.
All right, so-
A barrier.
Creating a barrier there, and they'll maintain that barrier. And, if we did certain plants and we could work together on what those plants are, we could make it both aesthetically pleasing and beneficial to the wetlands.
My concern is that those roots took up a lot of water and also abated flooding in the area because of its ability to absorb and release water. So, we really want you to feel safe. We want you to feel, and we want a nice aesthetic solution for you too. But
Yeah.
but you did, those average 83 years old, these trees. These are, significant.
Right. I feel bad about it, trust me.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do it. I
Right, so
didn't want to do it.
can we have you finish this up, or do you want us to?
Yes, no, I can work with the homeowners and come together with an administrative remediation plan for this and give it a time limitation.
And come back to us?
Well, if I do it administratively, I don't have to, I could send you, yes, I could keep you in the loop, of course.
Yeah.
I'd like to be kept in the loop.
Well, it'll be a,
That would be if I do an administrative remediation, they're not going to be required to get a soil scientist, a wetland scientist, a landscape architect. We can work together on it. And we'll present you with a plan.
That's what I think that's appropriate.
All right, let's do that. So we need,
Time frame, spring, or?
It would definitely be spring. I'm glad you didn't take the stumps out. I'm glad they didn't grind the stumps down or pull the stumps, because what they did was very little disturbance.
They
Ground disturbance.
because of that, I mean, that alone tells me they clearly did it for their safety, right? So I think if,
It might have also, been, a lot of extra.
Yeah, a lot of,
well, it's a lot of money cutting those large trees down too. But
Yeah.
I think that's a good resolution because it will also provide, a nice, barrier for you as well.
It will be a combination of some large shrubs, small trees, and shrubs. So it's,
that's fine.
we'll work it out.
We need a motion to.
Motion to approve the administrative remediation plan. Somebody want to make a motion?
To,
It's really a motion to process the violation via an agent approval
What she said.
or via an administrative remediation application.
I just want you to come back briefly and describe the remediation.
that was what
Absolutely.
he said. Yep, he will do that. Sure.
Great.
Motion?
Somebody's gonna make a motion.
I'll make the motion, but what was the exact wording?
Do you, you process it as agent approval or you process it through the remediation application? How are you
Through
doing that?
the remediation application, there's two.
Okay, all right.
There's an administrative remediation application.
So it's a motion to process the violation with an administrative remediation application.
Okay, so yes, I'll file a motion for that.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Kelly. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So you'll work with Andrew and then we'll hear what your plan is and then go forward.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
I do understand. My mom was very scared of the trees coming down, so I do totally understand that pressure that your mom is applying.
Yes.
All right, so moving on, permitted use as of right, none of those, correspondence, we have none, general discussion.
Thank you.
Be in touch.
Minutes, we have minutes for the November meeting.
Yeah, I took a look through, I didn't get, I just looked through it today, so I wasn't sure if there's anything that, anybody had any issues with on it.
If you.
I had been ill for last week, so I had no chance of looking at this. But I don't see any issues with the minutes.
Going on last week.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess we need to make a motion.
So I will make a motion to approve the minutes from November 13th.
Motion to approve minutes by Commissioner Sabia. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Zimmerman. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, last but not least, public outreach.
Lawrence, did you want these pictures?
No, you guys hold on.
Yeah, can I hold on to those, Rick, so I'll keep them in the file?
Put on my refrigerator.
So for public outreach, I just wanted to briefly talk, we had talked the last meeting about putting together a somewhat of a pamphlet that might get distributed to educate people, residents. We're in the very beginning stages of doing that. So if any commissioners would like to have some input on what's being put into this pamphlet, I think after the meeting, we can stay and we can talk about that. But it's in the very preliminary stages right now. So I don't see any reason to take up meeting time to talk very preliminarily.
But once there's something a little more finalized during a meeting.
Then we will.
Go through it and talk about it and publicly talk about it in the public forum.
Right, we don't need a whole lot of, hey, what about this idea, as if it's not gonna end up going anywhere. That's fine.
Right.
Makes sense.
All right, so.
What about the meeting minutes from the meeting that we held in the library?
I don't have them.
So well, I put out an email and I asked you guys if you wanted to be involved. Ben said yes, the rest of you did not reply. We did have a meeting with Aquarian and the Health Department and the Water Conservation Commission. And we talked about a broader outreach because although interesting to us, obviously the inland wetlands is not necessarily a topic that people would want to see. We wouldn't get a bigger audience. So the thought was, well, if we had a bigger audience, give away some rain barrels, do some things like that, trees or small saplings or something, get people in and talk about the wetlands, the watershed in a more global, we just be part of it. Other people are interested, like the health department is interested in, is informing the residents regarding lead pipe remediation and the water supply. Aquarium is very, very proactive, and they've actually, as far as water barrels, they've already said that they could offer us a couple to give away as, like raffle. There were some discussions with Terry, between Andrew and Terry, and then this weekend, at the tree lighting on Stepney Green, Terry was talking to me about a number of things, and I brought this up. And my reaction from Terry was very positive. It was very, very good about not necessarily focusing on what shouldn't happen, but what could happen. And, we could do an Earth Day, an Arbor Day celebration if it was with somebody else, like Save Our Stepney was, took charge of it or something, because they do a lot of things on the green in Stepney. But neither here nor there. The meeting, we had minutes. We talked about different ways of outreach, because this is the great foundation Mark is doing. I really appreciate the work that's being done now as a minimal to get the word out. It's going to be great. And and I'm sure we'll be able to do that in numerous ways and link to some, but there were some other thoughts from other folks. The health department was saying, hey, if we could link some videos there, might be your big chance, Kathleen, but I'm just saying, we want to outreach. It's not enough for us to just do it on our own. It's just not interesting enough. People wouldn't, they wouldn't pay a lot of attention. They'll seek it when they want to. And that's why the foundation is important. But, I don't know that we've given up. I'd like to take it to Stepney Task Force. I'm not asking for any. I'm very willing to have everybody, but even at the town green with Terry introduced me to our senator. What's her name? I'm sorry. Sujata Gadkar Wilcox. And she and I spoke a little bit about the possibility, and she was very receptive. She says, I've got ties to Fairfield University and some environmental people who could do some presentations or be involved. And so I don't think this is going to go farther or not. It's not necessarily us, although I would want to be part of it, because I think that getting the word out is important, and focusing on our watershed and improving the overall understanding of our watershed and how critical and important it is to our life here in Monroe is not a bad, is not bad. And getting these other people involved makes it even more of a attractive event for residents. So that being said, I'll continue along that path to some degree and see what kind of buy-in I get from other people. I don't know if Terry didn't say anything about farmer's market to me as a venue. If we could set up a table with the,
the health department does it.
Right, so
they're usually not there every session, but yeah, they'll take a couple and they'll set up a tent and they'll do some information stuff. I think there's opportunities there to.
right, so I think as a minimum, that our foundation plus that would be, but as a maximum, if it becomes an Earth Day event or an Arbor Day event or something like that, that's a whole nother thing. I'll let you know, but there were meeting minutes. I'd be glad to forward them to everyone. I did send them, and we do owe a response to the folks who came to that meeting. because we said we would go to the selectmen and take this a little further, and so we'll figure that out, but I just didn't want you to think that that's the only thing. And I don't know that's good, but I don't know if that's really as much as we need more, is what I think, more outreach.
Anybody else?
When the time comes, if you want to do something with the farmer's market, if you let me know. My wife is on the committee that runs it, and Kelly Plunkett is a close friend, so.
Good. Can you have that discussion? How about this? How about if I send you out the meeting minutes from that meeting?
Yeah.
So that you know what we talked about? And then, because one of the action items was to talk to Kelly and or the farmer's market. And I know Kelly, I've worked with her on Wolf Den and some other things, but it's not like I.
Sure, yeah,
So that'd be great.
yeah, happy to do that.
Thank you. That'd be the next step.
You got it.
Cool?
Okay. All right. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
I need motion.
Oh, I'm
I'm
sorry.
asking if there's a
Okay.
motion to adjourn.
I will put in the motion to adjourn.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We're adjourned.